everybody. I am Joe Marcello, joined as always by my partners in comic book crime, Orrin Phillips.
Hey, good evening.
And Mike Farah.
Yo, yo, yo.
We are the Dollar Bin Bandits, and you're listening to the Dollar Bin Bandits podcast. And this week, we are absolutely thrilled to bring to you our interview with someone who is probably one of the most entertaining and fun guests that we've had in a very long time. We are bringing you our interview with none other than Kevin Dooley. Again, one of the creators of the Green Lantern, specifically the Emerald Twilight series. But what I love about him, other than him being just so cool and great to talk to, is, he tells his story of how he got to where he was. And what I love about it so much is that the fact that he said early on in his life, he wanted to work for DC Comics and he wanted to work on Green Lantern specifically. And what did he do? He walked into DC Comics and requested a job working on Green Lantern specifically. And that's what he did. I don't know of anyone else who's done that. I sure as hell haven't done that, and I would love to.
Yeah, the other thing I got to talk to him a little bit about is his time with Amazing Heroes, which was a fan magazine that was, prior to Wizard, and all the work that he was doing to get that magazine out is really incredible. And you'd be stunned to hear what it took to produce that magazine each week.
And not only was he an architect of the Emerald Twilight storyline, but in no short order, also, masterminded a turn in Aquaman's direction, specifically a turn towards having not a hand, but a hook. And another, interesting, weird 90s kind of event that sometimes doesn't get its own, get its due, but Kevin Dooley was the guy behind that. So let's hear from him directly. This is Kevin Dooley.
We are interviewing Kevin Dooley. Now,
really?
Everyone,
wow, I hear that.
I am especially thrilled about that because he was very instrumental in his work on Emerald Twilight. So there's going to be a lot of Green Lantern discussions. So I'm giving everyone a heads up. But before we get to any of that, I have to ask, where I ask everyone, how did you get involved in comic books?
When I was a kid, my mom would have us buy comics, my brother and I. And when we would go out for a drive, she would say, take something along to read. I don't want to hear anything from you. So my brother would take 5 and I would take 5, and then we would exchange them. And we read constantly. We had hundreds of comic books in our apartment, and my brother used to read them to me. And I remember one time in particular, he was reading an Adam Strange done by Carmine, and he was reading it, and I actually pointed to a balloon and saying, shouldn't that balloon go over there? Shouldn't we move that? And he goes, would you just enjoy this story? And I knew from then that I was going to be an editor. Okay. And so I went through life, and I always wanted to be at DC Comics. Ever since I was a teenager, I wanted to be at DC Comics, not as a writer or as an artist, as an editor. And this is what I always tell, I'm teaching 7th grade English now, and I always tell my students, I wanted to edit Green Lantern and Aquaman.
Oh, wow.
And I did them both. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Eventually, I grew up and went to college. I became a creative director at an advertising agency, and I got offered a lot of money to go to another agency. And I said, no, I'm going to go edit a comic book magazine. And the woman said, oh, how much are you going to be paid? We'll match it. And I said, $18,000 a year. And she just stopped. It was Ogilvy and Mather, which are still around, big advertising. And she said, wait, do you know how much that is a week? And she went, do you know how much that is? Oh my God. And she goes, go ahead. And I wound up being in Amazing Heroes. editing
amazing.
Amazing Heroes for over a year. So that's kind of how I got to into comics. And then I interviewed Andy Helfer for an article about gays in comics. And somebody had said something kind of disparaging. So I called him up and said, hey, do you want to respond to this? And he goes, yeah, I want to respond to this. And I had to call him back, and I called him back, and I called him back. He said, hey, you ever think about working for DC? I said,
Yeah.
you got to be kidding me. So, yeah. And so I moved from California to New York in a Volkswagen with all of my my clothes and 2 cats, and started DC. I was hired by Dick Giordano on 8/8/88.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my favorite number, seriously, is 8.
That
Because
worked
I
out
was
well.
born on January 7th, which is 1 + 7, in 1953.
Wow.
And my present school where I work, my my room is 404.
Wow.
That's a superhero right there.
That
Yeah.
is
And
gotta
I
play
really-
those numbers.
And I really liked Eighth Man when I was growing up. So anyway, you guys know Eighth Man?
That I don't.
I don't.
It's an anime. It's an anime thing.
Okay.
Superhero anime. Anyway.
So out
with
of
that-
I have to say that out of all the people that we have interviewed so far, which is, I don't know, 20 or some odd or more, you're the first person who has said that they wanted to specifically go into comics with the purpose of being an editor for these specific characters. Everyone else has more or less kind of fallen into it in some fashion.
Right.
Other, like, oh, well, they say I should do this, and I figured, I'll go to New York and I'll just walk in, and so and so was there, and they're like, they just threw that, they have some very blasé, nonchalant style story. You're the first person with the kind of goal-oriented mindset. I'm going to do that at DC for Green Lantern and Aquaman. So,
and I also wanted to be on the radio, and I was on a radio. I had my own radio show for 18 weeks, and I left it for a woman.
well, that's a
And
bad
then
idea
I
right
also
there.
wanted to be an English teacher, and I am.
Well, that's great.
That's
Seriously, all 3 things that I wanted to be when I was a teenager, I did them. The thing about it is I wasn't at DC until I was like 45.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's one of those do not give up kind of things.
So there's hope for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, heck yeah. Heck no, I'm serious. Yes, there is. Definitely. Not giving up. Doing what you're doing is a great thing. Having the contacts and everything like that. It's great. Why not?
I know Oren, so that's my contact.
Oh, that's right. Oren said that he knew you.
Yeah.
Oh,
There you
We're
go.
modest.
we're in trouble.
I want to talk quickly about Amazing Heroes, because I've kind of been late to the game with that book, but it's such an important magazine because before the internet and before Wizard magazine, Amazing Heroes was the place you went to get your news about what's going on in comics. Did the comic companies approach you guys with stories, or did you have to kind of hound them a little bit to get their talent on?
Actually, both. If they wanted to push something, they would call up Kim Thompson or myself,
Right.
like the Millennium, when they were doing Millennium. I don't know if you guys remember that. And Invasion
Yep.
as well. And some things that they wanted to push, they would approach us. And we also knew, we had ins at DC, and we would call up editors. Hey, I understand you got this, or coming up, or we'd call up people like Mike Royal and Frank Cho, etc. And do you want to be interviewed? What you got coming up? We had some lines in to DC and to Marvel as well. So yeah, and we got a lot of stuff from the from Diamond.
Okay.
Diamond distributors. We would read their catalog, which was stuff that was coming out. We came out bi-weekly.
Wow.
Amazing Heroes came out bi-weekly.
Jeez.
No sleep. I once stayed awake for 64 hours straight
Wow.
because I had to get 2 issues out. and one was the double-sized issue. So I slept on the floor, I slept in chairs. So Amazing Heroes really taught me the finite things about editing, about proofreading, typesetting. Great people there. Kim Thompson, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but he was a great guy. And I met my best friend there, Dale Crane, who unfortunately passed away last year. But it was an experience that allowed me eventually to get into DC Comics.
Now, how many people were on staff there? That's just you?
Me. It was me, and there was freelancers.
I was gonna say, what it was stringers doing.
Yes,
writing the show.
stringers, and we had there was an art director. Doug was my art director, but mostly, yeah, it was just people doing stuff all over the place. Doing Andy Mangles, who's still up and around, and Gerard Jones, and a whole bunch of Dwight Decker, who's still around. But yeah, it was just people. Also, they would approach us. Hey, I've got an article that I want to do with you or do for you. So yeah, they would approach us as well. So it was great because there was such Gary Groff, who is the editor-in-chief of Fantagraphics. He said, Amazing Heroes makes the money so that we can print Comics Journal.
Wow. Okay.
Because yeah, Amazing Heroes sold because of fandom, and Comics Journal was a little bit higher there, so they didn't make as much with subscriptions as Amazing Heroes.
Wow. And just so people realize, and to show how impressive what you were doing, Amazing Heroes was not a pamphlet that came out. This was a good size. It was like almost magazine size. I mean, it was the size of a comic, but it was a lot of pages worth of content. It wasn't just all ads and stuff.
64 pages every 2 weeks.
Yep.
Wow.
And then we had the specials that were what's coming up in the next year, and those things would be like twice the size, like 120, 130 pages.
Wow.
So
That's
yeah,
badass.
I'm getting tired just thinking about it.
I was gonna say, how did it? What happened to it? I mean, why did it just was becoming popular anymore?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I know that when I left, it went to monthly.
Okay.
And I really, seriously, I don't know what happened to it.
Okay.
How I got into that was that they had a thing in the editorial session, said anybody want to write for Amazing Heroes. And so I said, I sent in an article, and an article which I printed in my last issue. It never got printed. And then I also made a whole bunch of suggestions for columns and for ways to improve the magazine. And I talked to Kim Thompson and said, you want a job? I said, yeah. And it turns out they had somebody else for the job, somebody from Canada, but Canada wouldn't let this person come into the United States because being an editor was not a legitimate occupation.
Wow. What a slap in the face.
Wow.
I know. It worked out for me.
Canadians are supposed to be nice. I mean, what's up with that? I don't know.
Get off their case.
So this is going to lead us into the Green Lantern part of this, but how did you get that gig of editing Green Lantern specifically?
I slept with the right people. No, wait. No.
See, now this is getting good. This is.
I was assistant editor to Andy Helfer, who was the guy who was in charge of all the Justice League books, Justice League, Huntress. But there was like 4 or 5 Justice League. That was when Justice League was funny. I remember it was Justice League Europe,
right?
The Quarterly,
International. Yeah,
Justice League Australia. There was a Justice League Australia. You know who was in charge?
Bawana Beast.
North.
Really?
Yes.
That's
Attack of Killer Penguins. Yes, one of the first stories that Mike McCone ever drew.
Wow, I don't remember that.
Yes, and Nort was in charge, and that's how you say his name, by the way. Nort.
Not Gnort.
Not Nort. Nort. Like
so,
that. And so Andy also got Green Lantern, and so I was assistant editor on Green Lantern. when Keith Giffen was writing Emerald Dawn, which reintroduced Hal Jordan
Okay.
in some miniseries, and we started that off. And eventually, Andy went to Piranha Press, and I took over Green Lantern. And during that time, we were supposed to, assistant editors were supposed to propose new series, and I proposed Aquaman, and I proposed it with quite a few different, but a completely different creative team that didn't work out. And then eventually I got Peter David on it. So that, anyway, that's how I got Green Lantern, was that I was the assistant editor on it and eventually took over as editor.
Got it. Now, was there now we've spoken to Ron Mars, who was a great,
Yeah,
just absolutely
amazing.
just it was a great discussion. And I talked to Xeroff about Green Lantern too, so hunker down.
Okay.
So at what point do you guys decide, okay, we need to off Hal Jordan and do it in such a grandiose manner? Because it's not like, he doesn't get killed by Sinestro or even Mongol, it's he goes batshit, pardon the expression, and becomes probably one of the best bad guys, in my opinion, in a very long time, because he's got the best backstory, the most compelling backstory ever, because you actually, he's supposed to be he's bad at this point, he's becoming a bad guy, and you feel for him. Like you genuinely feel for him.
That's why I always look at him as not necessarily as a villain or a bad guy, but kind of like what you said there, as a fallen hero.
Yeah.
And what had happened was that sales on Green Lantern were going down. And so it was kind of like what are we going to do kind of a thing. And because they had just revitalized the Flash, and sales had gone up. And so we want to do something radical for that. And ready? Here's where it all comes out. So there was this meeting. I actually was talking with Jerry Jones, who was the writer at the time. And I said to him, listen, this is what we need to do. We need totally open. Go outside the box, whatever you want, whatever you think, think crazy, think challenging, think creative. And he came up with a pretty interesting idea about bringing back the Guardians of the Universe. They weren't around at the time. And we even did a cover for it that was an ad done by Kevin McGuire, and which is probably available on the internet somewhere. And so that was the proposal. And Archie Goodwin came into my office, stood at my window, looked down at the hundreds of people going on Broadway right there, and he said, not a single person down there gives a damn about what we do up here. And he looked at me and he kind of said, I hate those little blue guys. So we said how we had a big meeting with everybody, with all the senior editors, which is Denny, Archie, Mike Carlin, myself, my assistant at the time, Eddie Berganza, and we talked about it's time to completely change everything, writer, artist, and do something really radical. And in this meeting, we basically said, how about if we do this? How about if we get rid of not the Guardians of the Universe? How about if we get rid of everybody? All the Green Lanterns have one Green Lantern. And we talked about who could do it. And Ron Mars was doing some great stuff. And so we basically called up Ron Mars. I called up Ron Mars and said, how would you like to make a lot of money? And he said, yeah. And so we said, this is what we want to do. Give us a proposal for that. And he did. And it was amazing. And so what it was is that we took it from Hal Jordan. What kind of a character was Hal Jordan? Because for me, stories are all about character. And Hal had some anger issues in the past. I mean, the guy kept on coming up with boxing gloves. I mean, come on.
I love how no matter how far this character goes, people come back to that. I mean, as do I, because it is kind of goofy, but you know,
The boxing glove and the fan to blow things away. I mean, one of the reasons why I've always loved Green Lantern ever since the John Broome and Gil Kane era is that Green Lantern is not only fearless, but he symbolizes imagination. In order to be a Green Lantern, you have to have a really good imagination.
Yeah.
In order to create those things, more than boxing gloves and fans and stuff like that.
Right.
And that's, I think, a lot of what Ron did, was coming up with stuff, amazing stuff. So that's what we did. We said, how can we do this? And I got to tell you how Coast City was destroyed, because that was the impetus for Hal going a little bit off the edge.
Right.
Was that Mike Carlin? They were doing whatever that was, it the Reign of the Supermen?
Yeah. Yeah.
With Mongol. And
Right.
he came into my office, just leaned in my office and said, "Can we destroy Coast City?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay." And he was gone.
Yeah.
And then we went from there. When we were in the discussion, we went from, how did that make Hal feel? I mean, granted, there was that one issue with Green Lantern and Green Arrow right before Emerald Twilight. That was kind of like, okay, we've got to have something out this month. And then the next month I had to do Green Lantern 48, 49, and 50 all at the same time.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And I got to tell you a little personal note is that Denny O'Neil was teaching at the Creative Arts College in New York. And he had offered for me to take over his teaching gig there. And I said yes. And then Emerald Twilight happened. And so he had to get somebody else, which turned out to be Don McGregor. But I could have started teaching. I mean, I did cover some of his classes, but I could have, starting my teaching career back then as well. So it was all three of those issues doing at the same time. And Ron was writing all three of them at the same time. And it was a great story about a character. That's important. Yeah. It was about Hal and the pain that he felt. I mean, there's a lot of fans who say, well, what happened? He didn't seem to be all that upset about it in Green Lantern number 46. And I go, well, it's PTSD. It takes a little while to happen. I mean, I love Hal. Hal is my favorite Green Lantern, with Kyle only being second because I grew up on Hal. So that's how it happened. It went from character. What can we do with this character to make it different, to shake it up, to do something with a character? That's what stories, I always believe all stories are about, one character.
Yeah, I think you guys really, you shaped that character very well. I mean, you made him compelling, because there was a period there prior to, Emerald Twilight where it was kind of, and even, before Reign of the Superman, because, obviously when Reign of the Superman happened, you knew that, that's kind of, he went off the deep end. But the character itself, like many others, just kind of fell into a lull. Didn't find the stories, they were cool because I always liked it, but they weren't as compelling. But then, this shit shook it up.
Yeah.
And I will venture to say, even though I'm a big Superman fan, that I found what happened to Hal and the whole story arc and his eventual rebirth more compelling than Superman, because Superman, you knew, being that it was Superman, you knew that it was somewhat short-lived, even though he wasn't in the comics for like a year.
Right.
And there was, everything around it, like how did he die and what happened and all these 4 characters coming back and all that, which was cool. But Hal Jordan wasn't seen or heard from for what, 10 years or more? I mean, a long time, years.
Yeah,
And then he started trickling in through various other
put him back
story
as,
arcs.
as Parallax.
But Parallax,
Yeah,
and then
Green
he
Lantern. And
then he dies in 0 Hour. No, I'm sorry. He causes 0 Hour. He dies in Final Night, giving his life for the sun. And then, you know, he comes back as the Spectre and et cetera, et cetera. But like, man, I have never felt for a character more than I did for him, because it's like, you know, he just was on this constant, you know, path of redemption or trying to redeem himself. And then, you know, there's a whole rebirth thing, which, you know, I could talk your ear off about that forever. But
well, if I may, one of the things that we did with Hal, one of what I think is the most important lines for Hal during Emerald Twilight was when he tried to bring back Coast City, and the Guardian said, you know, you're going against what you're supposed to do for with the ring, is you're not just supposed to use the ring for personal gain. And Ron wrote, what about for personal loss? And to me, that said everything about Hal, was that this really affected him.
Yeah.
And if you notice, if I may disagree with you a little bit, just in as much as I don't think it's really him going off the deep end so much as the fact that he wanted to bring back Coast City. The little blue guys wouldn't let him. So it's kind of like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do something to change this. And yeah, there is that kind of pain that he was going through, rather than, you know, he didn't really go crazy or insane. He didn't go crazy or insane. Honest, he didn't go crazy or insane.
Best cover ever.
Yeah.
Which I understand they redid it. I understand they redid this
a few times with all the different colored rings too.
Yeah. So I just want to say that's, like I said, it always comes down to character. And so there, go.
Was there what? So at that early age, or early stage, excuse me, of
Definitely
the decision.
Was an early age. I was quite a few. Look, I was quite a bit younger, Sonny.
Did you guys have like a built-in out in case this story didn't really pan out with the comic readers?
Of course not. No, we were going all in. We were going all in. As a matter of fact, we talked with Mike Carlin about what you were saying about not bringing Hal back for quite a while. So the impact was this shit has changed.
Yeah.
Like what you said, and I agree with you, with Superman, Superman's going to come back.
Right.
Kal-El is going to come back. And then we completely got rid of Hal Jordan. Yeah. And I used to say, what are they up to in Green Lantern next? And you know about me being the most hated man in comics, right?
No.
Yeah, I was before all this happened, as it was in the planning stages, as I was editing all this stuff, I went to, I think it was San Diego. And at San Diego, I was interviewed. And they said, what's going on with Green Lantern? And I said, I can't tell you, but what I can tell you is that I will be known as the most hated man in comics. And they went, oh, wow, what is that? And sure enough.
Wow.
You guys, yes.
Well, I mean, I think at this point it was, you know, you took your lumps in that sense, but man, it was a hell of a ride. I mean, you know, it's I will say, I mean, even into everything that happened with Kyle, absolutely adore that character, because Kyle came, like, I've followed that character from the time I got into comics up until now. I mean, I still read it, and you know, very few characters out there, you know, there are very few out there that people can say that yes, from the point that this character was created through its long existence up until now, I have followed them because you look, Superman, Batman, they've been around since, forever. You have even Marvel characters, Spider-Man, Iron Man, all of them, they've been around for a long time. Kyle is relatively new in the grand scheme, and he's had so much happen to him, and he's he's had a rebirth, as they say in Green Lantern. But I mean, he's changed over the years, and all these different incarnations have been just fascinating.
Right.
I've
actually met fans who said that Kyle is their Green Lantern. This was a few years ago. Kyle is their Green Lantern, and they didn't know about how. They started reading during the Kyle era,
right?
And they thought Kyle was Green Lantern.
Right. Well, that's like, the few people, probably 10 of them, who came in during New 52 and said, "This is my Superman," but they were just grossly mistaken. That's a shoot. So was there this, you got rid of the Green Lantern Corps, you have Kyle, and then there was this slow trickle of reintroducing all the main characters of the Green Lantern Corps. And what I always found interesting was Guy Gardner and his change to warrior.
Right.
What's up with that?
Well,
because that was unique.
What happened was that at the time of Emerald Twilight, we had Green Lantern, we had Green Lantern Mosaic, we had Guy Gardner, we had the Green Lantern Quarterly. And this is the other big risk that they took of Green Lantern, is they were basically canceling Green Lantern Mosaic and Green Lantern Quarterly, which were not selling great, but we're not selling bad either. So eventually we said, okay, Guy isn't going to be a Green Lantern anymore, but we want to continue the book because he's so popular. So it was called Guy Gardner for the longest time. And then
and he had Sinestro's ring, as I recall. He had just a leather coat. He got Sinestro's ring, and he was more or less a Green Lantern, but he just made yellow boxing gloves.
But and fans and whatever shovels,
or maybe like a woman. He made like a yellow woman because that was his thing. But
But for Guy, we wanted him to have his own identity, and I remember handing over the reins of Guy Gardner, which is what it was called at the time, to my assistant Eddie Baganza, and he got a Bo Smith, the great Bo Smith, who oh gosh, what is that? Why he created Winona Earp. You guys know about Winona Earp? It's a series. It was a comic, now it's a series. It's great.
I remember hearing the series.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was a comic before.
Yeah, and Chuck Dixon, and so they were the ones who recreated Guy as warrior, because that was kind of what he was. That they wanted to make him a much more powerful person in and of himself. So, and also to distance him somewhat from Green Lanterns. And Andy Helfer, once again, Guy Gardner is a name for a comic is a stupid name. Because it's like calling something Clark Kent. That would be great, a Clark Kent series and a Bruce Wayne series. Anyway, so it was Guy Gardner Warrior, then eventually it was Warrior. And it's still, so I had Mitch Bird as a fantastic artist on Guy Gardner, and so that's how it segued out of that. So I'd like to tell you a little story about the Comics Code real quick.
Sure.
Green Lantern number 50.
Okay.
Green Lantern number 50. Remember when he went to Sinestro's house? Yes. That both Ron and I agree that was the turning point for Hal. That was a choice he made to kill somebody. Yes, he killed Kilowog, but because the Guardians was throwing everything at him, he said, "Oh my gosh, these are all my friends coming at me." So more trauma. And when he killed Sinestro, Ron had originally written, when he broke Sinestro's neck, he was walking away, and Ron had written "bastard," and the Comics Code didn't approve it. That one word, that one damn word, and Ron came up with a phenomenal word, "damn," because he realized he had changed, that it wasn't Sinestro's fault with the bastard, but damn. And the Comics Code approved it. And I think that was another just phenomenal thing. It was a big balloon with just the word "damn" in it. But and thanks to the Comics Code, which does it exist anymore, gentlemen? I don't think it exists, does it?
Well, I think it exists, but Marvel and DC no longer subscribe to those beliefs. Basically,
A whole bunch of whole bunch of blue-haired old ladies, meeting in their basement saying, "I think this is terrible."
Yeah, it's Al Gore's wife. After she was done complaining about rap music, she was complaining about comics.
Oh, yes, Tipper Gore.
Yeah. That was so as you talk, I've read the issue so many times that Oren has there that I picture the panels in my head. So that head snapping moment, it resonates with me because him and Hal and Sinestro are having a conversation at that moment. Mm-hmm. And it's just when Sinestro is about to finish his sentence that he snaps his neck. And I found that I was like, oh God, wow, that was so deep.
That was also I think that Ron and I had a discussion about it. That was also the ultimate insult of the Guardians, mm-hmm. was they were sending all these people who were part of the Corps, and they had to follow the Guardians' orders. But then the Guardians brought back Hal's greatest enemy, mm-hmm. and that was the greatest insult to me. How dare you bring back my greatest enemy, and I want to do this thing for good, So anyway, that again, a character thing. Real quick about sales.
Yes.
Sales of Green Lantern number 50 and 51, and I don't know about 52, outsold Superman and Batman that month.
Wow.
So good job, Dooley.
Yeah.
There's a glow in the dark cover too.
Yes.
Yeah, I have I think I have 51. I have a t-shirt with Kyle on it. And my lady, she got me a mask, mm-hmm. a mask that has the cover to 51 on it with Kyle.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, very cool. Had somebody make it.
So I have to ask, a lot of people when they're heavily involved in a character and for whatever reason, they move on in their careers or to another character. I always ask if they keep up with kind of what has happened since. And, obviously people have different reasons for not doing so. But do you still kind of keep up with the characters that you've been involved with?
It's still being printed?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What's happened? No, actually, I did for a little while. And then I got so busy. I was going to college. And I was working 2 jobs, and I got a lot of stuff that just piled up. And I tried to read Blackest Night when it came out, but to be honest, and it's no disparagement, I love Jeff Johns, and I just didn't have the time to keep up. I wanted to, I really wanted to, but I just couldn't with all the stuff that I had going. I remember meeting Jeff Johns one time at a signing, and I didn't know he was signing. I was just at this comic store, and hey, Kevin, hey, how you doing? I'm like that, and he asked me, he goes, listen, I got something to tell you. I go, okay. He goes, we're bringing back Hal as Green Lantern. I went, okay. Is it a good story? And he said, yeah, it's a great story. And I go, it's fine. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm looking forward to reading it because
Yeah.
it's story, all about story, and it's story and character. So
Yeah.
so I haven't. I mean, I've got. There are my comics. There are my graphic novels over there, and
Nice.
everything like that. So I still do keep up with it. And as a matter of fact, I use graphic novels and individual comics and stuff like that in my English class as well.
Oh, that's
And
great.
one of the things that I use is my one Batman story that I wrote for the kids to show a character about Alfred. And so you wrote that, Mr. Dooley? Yes, I did. So I didn't keep up with it just because of time. It's not because I didn't want to.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. I what I appreciate about with the work that Jeff Johns did is that he did his homework and went back to all the stuff that had come before him, including everything that you were a part of and before that, and really the most finite thing that was mentioned or portrayed or in any way, shape, or form in the comic, he did his homework and he incorporated it later on. So the fact that and I don't see this as any slight on anything that came before it, because I think the fact that he included this stuff or made a mention of it in some form really is a testament to your work. Is that when the snapping of Sinestro's neck, you come to find out that, well, it wasn't really Sinestro, that it was a construct by his own psyche or something to that effect, which I don't, I mean, it's
Was it really?
Well,
really?
something along those lines, because obviously rebirth happens and who is there but Sinestro. But that's a way of kind of redeeming Hal Jordan to a hero status, even though he was supposedly killed someone. Well, he didn't actually kill someone. This is what happened. But at any rate, I'm done gushing about Green Lantern, Oren.
Oh, I do have to say though,
Yes.
Carl Story, who I love Carl Story. He's a great guy. And I always like to say, when people say, you killed Hal Jordan, I go, no, I didn't. Carl Story did. Because he's the one that killed him in the what was the Sinestro one? Then something of night. The Sinestro crossover.
Oh, the Sinestro Corp War?
When Hal sacrificed himself into the sun.
Oh, Blackest Night.
Blackest Night.
Yeah,
not
Final Night.
Final Night.
Yes.
That's when Hal did it. And I always like to say, oh, I didn't do it. Carl Story did. I just made him into a fallen hero, not a villain.
Fair enough.
I want to talk a little bit now about Aquaman. It's kind of been a hot potato of a character. He had some starts and stops. For you, when you get into this, in your mind, what works with the character and what doesn't work with the character?
What doesn't work with the character, I find, is when they make him too small.
Okay.
When they, I love the personal stuff that David put him through, but I see him as a much bigger, much more powerful character than a lot of people have portrayed him. Right. That, remember the whole thing about he couldn't be out of water for more than an hour. Remember that?
Yeah. And
I was the opposite of Aquaman. If I ate a hot dog, I had to wait an hour before going in swimming. Do you remember that? Did your mom ever say that to you?
Yes. You cannot eat. You have to wait a half hour before going into the pool.
Well, my mom used to say it's all according to what you eat. If you eat a hot dog, chips, and a Coke, you got to wait an hour. And I seriously, when I was a kid, it's like Aquaman, the opposite of Aquaman. Ooh. But I always thought of Aquaman as being incredibly powerful, incredibly fast, and kind of an environmentalist, just as much as considering the Earth is covered 3/4 of water. That's his fucking kingdom.
Right.
Dude, he's the most powerful monarch on Earth.
Right.
He should be at every UN. He should be at every G7. So not getting too deeply into politics,
Right.
but there was a lot of people who made him too small. And I love the stuff that that Peter did with him. Peter challenged him. I had to. Peter told me what he was going to do with Aquaman, you know, cutting off his hand,
Right.
and everything like that. And again, it's about character. How does that affect the character?
Right.
And Peter came up with a fantastic. He's looking at his two sides, his two both mortal and both human and Atlantean.
Right.
And so that's what I see where people don't take him to another level about how really freaking powerful this guy is.
Right.
You know, let's face it, he's been a joke for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to say, do you think the whole, surfing on two dolphins or using a squid to stop, Lex Luthor, I know that's sort of what he would do in the ocean. Those are the ocean creatures, but it kind of made him, like you said, kind of a goof when he sees Superman, moving planets and he has like a jellyfish attacking someone. Yeah, exactly.
Eccentric rings. But again, I remember some wonderful writers on Aquaman where they did a lot of research, and they had more of him if he was communicating with the fish. You know how much more there is in the oceans.
Right.
But what Peter did with him was very, very incredibly personal. Incredibly personal for Arthur, and so that's where I see the problem with Aquaman is that people restrain him. Yeah, riding on dolphins, but what can those dolphins do? You know what? You got a freaking whale, and the whales can take over New York. Stuff like that.
Right.
Didn't they do an Aquaman story where like San Diego sunk or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It became Sub Diego.
No, it did not.
Yes, it did. That was the name of it, Sub Diego.
Wow.
No. Hey, look, I didn't write it. I just read it.
I say nothing.
But it was all fixed.
Oh,
I forget how.
I was worried.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I know you're going to lose sleep over the fake characters that were created for comic books that are actually going to die.
I knocked off my glasses. Here I am. I'm so excited. I got so excited about Sub Diego. Wow. What did they still have the Comic-Con underwater? No, did they?
There was all this. There was so much more space for the convention. Now you had everything floating. There was. Yeah, that was a big thing. Like it was, and I don't remember the full story because it's been a while. But the people of San Diego, whatever the hell, they through some thing that happened, they became like New Atlantis in the sense that they could breathe and live underwater. Okay. And then there was some event that happened. And it may have been actually Infinite Crisis or something like that kind of wiped out that whole thing because that was one of those crisis issues where things got rebooted.
When just to go back to Aquaman at the beginning, was that what Peter was doing wonderfully is showing Aquaman's two sides. Is that when we were going to chop up his hand and replace it with a hook, Paul Levitz at the time said, kind of like, you can't do it, give us some validation, what are you going to do with it? And so I went back, talked it over with Peter. Peter gave me some great reasons what he was going to do with Aquaman, and I went back to Paul and fought for what Peter was going to do, and Peter did a great job.
100%. Did any backlash off of that from fans?
I became the most hated underwater editor of all time. Yes, there was. There is. I mean, like I said about Hal and about Aquaman, fans get so attached, and I'm still so attached to all these things that, yeah, it hurts them personally.
Mhm.
One, I remember one writer, I won't mention his name, but one very famous writer came up to me at a convention after Emerald Twilight, and he said, just came up to me and said, "Thank you for destroying my childhood." To which I
Something
said, "Hey, anything I can do to help you grow up." He walked away in a huff. So, but I mean, I always liked Aquaman. Aquaman is a tough sell. He is a tough sell
It
because
is.
he's got such a stigma about him of being this hilarious character,
Right.
this joke. So
I think. Good. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to ask real quick. After he loses the hand and gets the hook, did sales go up?
yes,
Okay.
yes, it did. And what's interesting is the fact that we relaunched Aquaman for the. Oh, I blew the minds of marketing.
Mhm.
I wanted to start Aquaman with the number right after the number when it was last canceled.
Mhm.
So it was
Yeah,
like
that makes
68. I
sense.
wanted to start it with 69 or 70, what it was. Marketing, no, it's got to be a number one. It's got to be a number one. So yes, sales did go up, but we were just starting at the time as well.
Okay.
And the challenge was, what do you do after that? Okay, got the hook. Then it became a not a psychotic hook, but a hook that was run by Aquaman's man or
Yeah.
mind.
Hmm.
And then Peter raised Poseidonus. Remember that? When it was in a dome and it was hovering above the ocean.
Oh yeah.
And I actually talked in our building at DC. There was a company that made snow globes. And I actually talked to them about doing a Poseidonus snow globe.
Oh.
And you would have an Aquaman and Mira and Topo would be, swimming all around it, and it never went anywhere. I know. We're all going, oh, I would so want that.
That would have been very fresh.
DC needs to get their act together when it comes to their stuff. Like they don't have enough like things, their replicas and whatnot, because I got plenty of Marvel crap, but I need way more DC.
Yeah. DC and a smaller DC one. Well, wait, hold on a second. Come on with me, gentlemen. Come on, let's go.
All right.
Come on with me. Okay. Oh, that's the sound of an old man right there. Here in my hallway,
Hey, I had some of those.
I've got a whole bunch of total justice stuff
Justice.
that Paul Levitz gave to me. Let's see if I can. One more thing that I have. Here's my Green Lantern piggy bank right there.
Oh, I have that.
I'm trying to find one thing.
Sorry, I got really excited. I have that.
Cannot find. Do you remember that Kyle had an apartment above Radu's Cafe? Remember Radu's? It was a coffee house.
Yes, coffee place.
They made a cup with the symbol for Radu's Cafe on it.
Really?
And I think I'm the only one. You guys should check it out. It's a great cup. It's a fantastic design, thanks to Daryl Banks. Which I doubt he ever got a penny for.
Wish I'd known that. We would have asked him about that.
He came up with he and I came up with the symbol and Radu and a whole bunch of other stuff. One thing I want to say about something you said earlier in regards to slowly trickling back this stuff for the old stuff of Green Lantern after Kyle took over.
Yeah.
One of the wonderful things that I liked about what Ron did was that Ron paid homage to the past, but always moved forward. Always moved forward because, Mike Carlin once said, every issue can be somebody's last issue, and every issue can be somebody's first issue. So you always got to keep it interesting for somebody who picks it up and go, oh, this is story, and I understand these characters. Yes. And that's one of the wonderful things about Ron, is that Ron kept things going forward, always new stuff. always new stuff.
Yeah,
So,
no, that makes sense. I mean, I appreciated that, like, for what you said. I mean, they paid homage to what came before it, and they made me like the characters more this time around. Not that I didn't like them before, but I had way more of an appreciation for them going forward. I mean, like, when they brought Jon Stewart back, he was paralyzed from the waist down, and one of the things that the first thing that Kyle did when he became Ion was to heal him.
right.
He just walks into his apartment, he sits down, and he's like, "Hey, look, I found out that the reason why you can't actually walk anymore is because there's some." The reasoning was kind of convoluted, but in the world of comics, it's fine. It was like some residual Green Lantern thing in his back, and it was cutting off, whatever. And he's like, "Well, if I could do it, if it were gone, I would walk again." He goes, "Well, I fixed it the second I walked in here, so you can walk. It's up to you now." And he builds himself back up, and he was a badass.
I wonder, was there any backlash for that just because you have a disabled character and then all of a sudden by magic, the disabled character is better as opposed to a lot of people who are disabled who don't have that option? In other words, giving not tribute, but giving making it sincere that people can't be be healed just like that. They didn't.
I don't recall that. I honestly don't recall any any type of backlash for anything. The only time I heard any type of media outcry, and it wasn't really any outcry, is when it made media coverage, is when Kyle's friend who was gay got beat up.
Right. I remember
And I had, up until that point, I was able to get every single issue of that comic, and that one sold out. And for years I couldn't find it anywhere until I was finally able to get one later on. But that made news because that was a big deal, and a lot of people in the gay community really appreciated that story because of kind of what it covered. And but other than that, yeah, I mean, I don't remember it, that's any issues being
I don't know whether or not I should
any
tell you
backlash.
guys this. Should I tell you this?
Please.
Please, please. There was an issue of Green Lantern in which we had Green Lantern and who was the not Speedy, but
Arsenal.
Was there a new Green Arrow, a young Green Arrow, or was it still
Connor Hawk? Yes.
Connor Hawk?
Mhm.
Connor Hawk was trying to find himself. We actually had a page. I don't know if this is going to get me in trouble or not, but you guys are going to love this. There was a page of Green Lantern where Connor was questioning himself and everything like that.
I
And
remember something like that.
and Connor kissed Kyle.
I don't remember that, but I
And
remember
because they said, no, this really doesn't fit the character. We don't need this kind of press.
Oh.
Because of one page that's going to kind of overwhelm the story. But I remember Ron had written a great line, was that Connor kissed Kyle and said, "I don't know if I'm gay or not, but it sure isn't you."
I remember that there was some questioning of his identity personally in the comics, but I don't remember anything really happening with that.
Right.
I think
we did take out the page. Paul Pelletier probably still has the page, and he could probably sell it for a couple $100,000.
Wow.
Yeah, here's Kyle kissing Connor. But I totally agreed with the decision of, it would be too distracting for the story.
That was a character that I don't think really was had enough of a chance.
Yeah.
Because they brought him in, basically they brought in a young Oliver Queen, because that's what he was, just a young Oliver Queen.
Right.
And before you know it, old Oliver Queen was back.
Right.
And, you had Connor Hawke still kind of floating around out there, but they never really fleshed out that character too much, as I recall.
Well,
It was kind
we
of cool.
had a lot of fun with why have we not talked about women in refrigerators?
Go for it, Joe.
I have asked that question to many a person on this show so far. And I have to tell you, I was terrified to ask. We had one woman on our show, June Brigman, pleasure to talk to. And I brought it up to her because I wanted a female opinion on it. And
Right.
up until that moment, she'd never heard the term. Then we spoke to Ron Mars, and I was like, all right, I got to ask him. And I was terrified to ask him because I didn't know how he would respond to it, because this is something that was a pivotal moment in the Green Lantern story that he wrote. And it has gone on to have a negative connotation, again, for, make-believe characters, but still, I didn't know if he would have any
also,
kind of,
wasn't it also, it's been mentioned in so many
and it's
places.
again, yeah, right. And it's been mentioned even by Ryan Reynolds. So
yes.
So I brought it up to him, and he was just a pleasure to talk to about it. And I really appreciated his point of view on it, and he was totally fine with it. And
What did June say?
She didn't really know what I was talking about at first.
Okay.
And I had to kind of, explain it. And I was really kind of scared to do so because I wanted to be respectful of her as a woman in discussing it. But she really didn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, Oren, she didn't really have much of an opinion on it, other than she understood the reasoning behind it, because the heroes kind of needed that push in that sense. And up until that point, women were that jumping off point for the hero to kind of give him their push and to become a hero.
Right, take this shit seriously.
Yeah. Right, like they were the Uncle Ben moment for a lot of characters. So yeah, that was that. And I'm really glad you brought it up. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I knew from the beginning, Ron and I talked about when we introduced Alex, that eventually this would be her fate. So
right,
it was all part of the story from the beginning, as an impetus for him to take this seriously. So the fact that it has become this trope of, and I agree with not using women as impetus for heroes, by killing them, by whatever, however, that they shouldn't be used for that. Alex was a great character,
right?
But because of the story and because of Kyle needing to have his face slapped and saying this is not a joke anymore. So it was necessary for that. I think it's terrible the way that some female characters are treated as just, toys to move around. Hey, Lois Lane was like that for decades, right? She was just there for Superman to be the damsel in distress kind of a thing. So,
but she never actually died. Like nothing ever really happened to her.
Right.
She was tied up or she was captured, and Superman would come busting through the wall, save her. Oh, Superman, but that, and it was brutal. It was a real brutal, like, it was kind of like Saw style. They shove her in a fridge.
Well, in regards to Lois Lane, Superman did not need to become. He did not need to save Lois in order to become more Superman, as opposed to Kyle needing something to shake him into, this isn't a joke. This is stuff for you to take seriously.
Yeah.
So he needed that, and I think we created the character in order to do that for him as part of the storyline.
Yeah.
But if somebody just does it, creates the character and says, "Oh, and we're going to create a woman that we'll just throw away," I legitimately I loved Alex,
Yeah.
and I don't think he went right to Donna Troy after that.
No,
But-
I mean he kept. I mean her character kept coming up in the comics over many issues. I recall.
Part of that was because the editor of the Titans said we need Donna Troy back. So we had to write her out of Green Lantern in order for her to go either back to Wonder Woman or back to Teen Titans. So we said, okay, well, we'll get somebody else. Let me tell you about that scene. That scene originally was much more gruesome.
That's what Ron mentioned. Yes.
It was open. The door was opened a lot.
Yeah.
And it had to go to press. It had to go to press. And I think it might have been the Comics Code again. And so we had to redraw the refrigerator much close, so you could only see a small portion. You could see like Alex's leg or something like that. And you're looking at the guy who redrew the refrigerator door.
Really?
You draw a nice fridge.
Thank you. Hey kid, you got a future drawing fridge. Hey,
You're like the Maytag man.
Daryl didn't have time. Production really doesn't like to. Couldn't do it in time, so I just sat there. At 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock and drawing this fridge. So and it went out like the next day to print.
Wow.
So.
Wow, that's interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I want to ask, because I want to be mindful of your time, but I have to ask about you spent time working on Mr. Miracle.
Yes.
How was that? Was there any pressure working on a Kirby character, especially a New Gods Kirby character?
Well, I remember I was an editor of Mr. Miracle.
Okay.
And then I was a writer of Mr. Miracle.
Right.
So as the editor, we pretty much had free reign. Doug Mensch was insane and say, hey, let's have, I've gotten some complaints from people saying that could have been a much better series if there were more villains. And I remember he had the noodle. Mr. Miracle fought the noodle. And there was a lot of tongue in cheek for that. So no, there wasn't really any pressure for that. When I wrote Mr. Miracle, there was.
Okay.
Because John Byrne was coming in to do New Gods.
Okay.
And so there was a big meeting with I think it was Archie Goodwin, John Byrne, myself, and a few other people they were asking me, what are you going to do with Mr. Miracle? And I said, well, there's a lot of questions that Kirby never answered that I'd like to answer to make Scott better, a better character. And John Byrne kind of saw himself as the person who knew everything about Kirby and about the fourth world. And so I asked these questions. Who is Scott's mother? What is Scott's real name?
It's not Scott.
How come he's the only god without any powers? So I wanted to slowly have him as the opposite of Darkseid. That Darkseid had, what are those rays that come from Darkseid's eyes?
The Omega beams?
Omega beam. Well, Scott was going to have the alpha beams. That, whereas Darkseid destroyed, Scott was going to heal.
Okay.
So, and also, Scott Free is not his name. Granny Goodness gave him that name.
Because he would get away scot-free.
Yes, exactly. And he kept on escaping from the orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to bring out all these aspects of Scott and supposedly the sales were not well, and they came in and said, we need you to end Mr. Miracle. I said, okay, I can end it at next issue. And they said, no, end it this issue.
Wow.
Oh wow.
So I did get to play a little bit with that. Scott did get to meet his mother when he descended into their version of Hades.
Mhm.
But so that was it. I enjoyed Mr. Miracle is one of my favorite characters. It
I
was.
like that character. I
Yeah.
really do. He's really one of the only new gods other than Darkseid that really is a reoccurring
Right.
character. Every once in a while, Orion shows up and maybe
Right.
Calabac, but
Mhm.
Mr. Miracle has been a part of the Justice League. He's been around.
and I got to write. We were behind in deadlines, and so Paul Kupperberg, who was a great guy, fantastic writer, and he was my editor at the time, and said, "Okay, I need you to write half of the book to be one story, and half of the book to be another story." So I had Big Barda wrestling with Wonder Woman in the first half, and then I had Scott dealing with abuse, the abuse that he suffered under Granny Goodness at the orphanage. So it had to do with domestic abuse and child abuse.
Mhm.
And I think it was, with all humility, I think it was a really, really great story.
Yeah.
And it was drawn by Marshall Rogers and Terry Alston.
Oh.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Damn.
damn. Ah. When I saw the pages, Paul brought them to me. Oh yeah, I got Marshall Rogers and Terry Alston. It was like,
That's how Oren is when he tells me, "Hey, I got Kevin Dooley and Ron Mars and Daryl Banks."
That's right.
those guys.
Triad.
The triad. Yeah, we are members of Heat. Do you know what Heat is?
No.
That's what my dog is in right now.
Oh, hey,
Sorry.
now.
Sorry.
There was a group, Hal's Emerald Attack Team, HEAT,
Oh, that's funny.
that they made to try to bring back Hal, and they hate Ron Mars, they hate Kevin Dooley, they don't hate Daryl Banks, and then they changed it to Hal's Emerald Allegiance Team or something like that. But
Okay.
Ron and I got members. We were card-carrying members of Heat.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, okay. I hate that Kevin Dooley and Ron Mars.
I don't.
We'll
I
defend.
don't at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our way.
Yeah, Ron is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's supposed to do a signing in our neck of the woods. Well, it got rescheduled. It was supposed to be this weekend, but due to some storms we had in the area, it had to get rescheduled. So
Oh, were you in the Path of Ida?
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Where are you guys? Look,
We're in New York.
oh
so,
yeah, New York. Yeah,
You know, it wasn't like full hurricane at that point. We got all like the bands of rain. So like we have a significant amount of flooding in various parts
Yes.
of the area. So
I saw the waterfalls in the subway.
Yeah.
dude.
Damn.
Yeah, that was bananas.
Crazy.
The funniest thing, there was someone shot video of a rat that was swimming in the water.
No.
Yeah, and and it's legit swimming, not like this thing is trying to like kick to survive. This thing is actually swimming and spinning around and like enjoying itself. It's like that damn rat that like stole the pizza and people were
Well, I was gonna say,
fascinated
did
by
you
it.
see any rats floating on pizza?
No. I saw people in cars floating on
That
the road.
was so tragic.
It was
But you guys
bananas.
are all safe. Everybody.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
are
everyone.
safe?
Thankfully.
Everyone around here is safe. My
And you
kids'
guys
first day
are-
of school got canceled, and I hate it. But you know, whatever.
Why do you hate the fact that his first day of school got canceled? Because of Ida?
No. My kid's first day of school was supposed to be today, and it got canceled. And I had so many things I wanted to do today.
How old is your kid?
I have a twin 5-year-old boy and girl,
Ah,
so they start first grade, or they're supposed to. But you know, it'll be next week. It's fine.
well,
But-
I have twins. I have twin girls who
Oh, wow.
who tomorrow turned 41.
Oh.
That was
Wow.
a great, Joe. That was a great face. Thank you for that face. What?
So you were 15 when you had kids?
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say.
I had them prenatally. Have 5 grandkids. Oh, you'll get there, Joe. You'll get there.
I'm not.
But
well, I want
any question, no question is off limits. Seriously, gentlemen, I've let a lot of things be known here in this interview. I figure, what are they going to do? What are they going to do to me? Huh?
Nothing.
True.
I'm just gonna stroke your ego another hour if I could.
No, I mean, what is DC going to do to me when I say, we had Kyle and Connor kissing, or we had the refrigerator open, or whatever. Or
we don't have that big of a following yet, so when we do, that then if we get any blowback, then I'll be like, holy crap, we're actually doing something.
Caps.
I hope they see. I went back to teaching. I've been teaching for 3 weeks, and we've already had at least 4 kids come down with COVID.
Oh wow!
So they were all quarantined at home. So I had to do lesson plans for the kids in class as well as for the kids who are at home.
So they don't do any type of quarantining for the remaining children in the class?
No, they don't. Nor they do they do it for the teacher.
I was never
wow
either. Jeez.
But
wow.
my lady is so wonderful. I've got shields all around my desk. I've got wipes. I've got the masks and stuff like that. So yeah, it's great to be back, because all last year I was teaching from home. It's great to be back in the classroom. It really is.
Well, that's great. I mean, I'm glad you're able to breathe through a mask, a sigh of relief in that sense, because it was a hell of a year. I mean, I know Orrin and I have a number of friends who are teachers, and just we speak to them weekly, either via Zoom or whatever, and just you would see the stress building on their faces each week, and it's we commend you and them obviously for doing that type of work. It's
well, I have a 5-day weekend.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Today is admissions day.
Oh,
What the fuck is
nice. Oh, so you had today off too?
Hmm?
That's right. You had today off too, didn't you?
I have today off, and I have Monday and Tuesday off. Monday for Labor Day and Tuesday for Rosh Hashanah. So
yeah, my
but
kids.
Monday admissions day. What the fuck is that? It's one of those stupid holidays.
Hey, don't rock the boat.
I know, but you know what? We need that. Teachers, it's been so stressful the last 3 weeks. Having another 5 days off after being back, it's good, and the kids as well.
Yeah.
It helps them reset. And okay, I've been back. I was able to do it, and I'll be able to do it again.
Right.
So,
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where can people? I mean, are you available on social media? Where can people see you, follow you?
I am
What
on the
have you?
book face. I am on the book face.
Okay.
Isn't that what you kids call it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kids, we have kids.
You kids call it. And I tell my students, I invented the internet and I invented paper.
Yeah.
And so they can write on both sides of the paper, kids. When I invented paper, I invented it with 2 sides, and I put the lines on there for you. So yeah, I am on Facebook. Get Kevin Dooley, search me up.
I didn't do that.
There we go. There is Speed Racer right out there.
Oh, jeez.
What?
Well, I want to thank you so much
Oh, you're welcome.
for your time. I'm not joking when I say I could have talked to you for another hour. You are a pleasure to talk to, if for no other reason than the fact that you were very pivotal in my adoration for Green Lantern.
In your youth?
In my back when I had hair.
Why is Orrin, when I say in your youth, Orrin laughed like, what is that?
Hey, we're the same. Joe and I are the same age. We're both 43.
Yeah, we're the same,
I'm just falling apart faster.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I mean, I love talking about this stuff. I loved comics ever since I was a kid. I still love comics even now. So it's I think what I did there was I'm very proud of it. I'm proud to have worked with so many incredibly talented people and created something that I don't know if it could be called the Dooley legacy, but it is definitely something that I'm proud of because it entertained, it told great stories.
Yeah.
It said something, and I got to meet, so many, wonderful, and work with so many wonderful people, including some people who are my idols. And I still got that.
Welcome back, everyone. That was our interview with Kevin Dooley. What did I tell you? Just an absolute pleasure to talk to, right? Funny, cool. I could talk to him all day, but I mean, we say that all the time. But I mean, look, if he lived close to me, I'd probably hang out with the guy.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's an awesome dude. Great stories, great personality. It's just one of those people that you come across and you're like, wow, this is a real treat to listen to him.
Yeah, you guys are making me feel bad that I wasn't part of the interview. And now I want to go to Kevin Dooley's house and knock on his door and introduce myself, which maybe I'll do. But great interview, guys. Solid guest. Really interested to, hear more from him. Maybe we'll have him on again. Maybe we'll just follow him on social. Sounds like a really good guy. So that'll do it for this week of Dollar Bin Bandits. You can find us on all the socials. You can find us on Gmail, dollarbinbandits@gmail.com. You can find us at our houses if you can find us, but don't even try because we are well hidden. Rate, review, subscribe. Please listen. Please tell your friends. Please tell your enemies. Tell your frenemies. This is Dollar Bin Bandits. We will see you next time.